Now we're looking again at flowers from my garden, so if you want to see what I've grown and what I can do with them in a flower arrangement, then stick with me for this tutorial. So welcome back to another tutorial where I show you what design I can create with flowers from my own garden. Now we're in July, this should be the beginning of July, and I've got some amazing flowers from my own garden. Some of them you might be familiar with, some of them you might not have seen before, and I've got a couple that I've collected from on the hedgerow as well, just to give a bit of variety in colours and shape. You possibly have seen this container before. I've got a few of these in different colours, and they are ones that I pick up in charity shops. This one I believe was originally from Marks and Spencer's, and I think that those round marble type balls used to sit in them, like a decorative type feature. But it's a really good container for creating a crescent shaped or a boat shaped arrangement. And I know there are quite a few of this style of video on the channel, but for garden flowers, sometimes this shape works really well. So today I'm going to be using floral foam. You could easily do this with wire netting to create something that's more environmentally friendly. And the reason I haven't done that today is because I think this container is too shallow. I don't think there's going to be enough depth in it to have an adequate amount of water to keep the flowers alive. So I'm going to start by creating that outline shape, and I have an amazing Acer in the garden. Look at that, isn't that just gorgeous? It's a few straggly branches on the bottom, so I thought it would be a good time to cut it back, get a bit of shape to it, and I could use it in the video today. So I'm going to start low initially and create some width, which will eventually lead on to some height. Now, at the moment, I'm quite low down. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to create a design that's a bit taller, but we might do that with our flower choice. So I'm going to keep using some smaller pieces of the Acer down low, just so that I'm starting to cover that floral foam there at the bottom. If you've got a garden and you're starting to cut things back to get more control over them, as the summer goes on, you know, our plants get some sunshine and they tend to grow really quickly. So if you're starting to cut back any greenery in the garden or any cut flowers, have a little practice with them, you know, at home and see what type of design you can create. And it'll save you some pennies and you won't have to go out and buy any flowers. So what I'm doing is just a really basic outline shape, some smaller pieces towards the front and the back. That's going to give me that depth that you hear me talk about all the time. And I'm going to do a design that's front facing, so you can see it from this side, and we'll just have some base foliage at the back or some shorter flowers. But hopefully you can see that I'm starting to create a little bit of a crescent style. This maybe isn't the easiest of styles to do because you really do have to have some material that's starting to curve. And I often say it's really about educating yourself into understanding how your flowers grow, the shapes that they will produce, and what works best in which particular style of arrangement. I've got some lovely curved branches here of the Acer, and if I try to get those into a really rigid triangle shape, they're not going to work. But they do work beautifully when I want those curved angles. Now this one is another garden foliage, and there are many people that are real Heuchera holics. They absolutely love their Heuchera leaves. I quite often get these gifted to me in little cuttings, so I don't know the variety name. I think this might be marmalade, but this is going to give me some base weight, helps to cover the foam, and it strengthens my focal point, which is the area in the centre. This might give you a bit of a hint as to the colour combination that I've chosen, but you might not have guessed the next flower that I'm going to use. This one is the Honeysuckle, and because it's a vine and it tends to grow in fairly unusual shapes, climbs along the wall, it can drape down and cascade. It's going to help me achieve those crescent shapes that I'm looking for again. And it might be a flower that you hadn't thought about choosing before, but it's a really good one for lasting. You might have a different colour and it lasts really well, so don't be worried. As long as you've conditioned it properly and you've had it in water since you cut it, it's really going to work quite well for your floral design. Now I think this is probably about the tallest I can go with these few pieces of the hellebore. Hellebore? It's not hellebore, it's honeysuckle. It does grow by the hellebore, which might be how I've got the names mixed up. And if you are relying on supermarket flowers, then something like a spray carnation or a lisianthus is going to really help you get that shape. Create the outline shape with the smaller flowers and then choose something larger for the centre of your arrangement. So hopefully we can start to see a little bit of a crescent shape starting to form and keeping this middle section quite flat. And this week I don't have what I would refer to as a focal flower. So I don't have anything large that normally comes in the centre to create emphasis and to give you a resting point. I've got a much bigger selection of small flowers. But you know, it's okay for me to tell you, you have to have this shape and you have to have this flower. If you can't get hold of them, then you can adapt and alter the choice of flowers that you've got. Now this one is another garden flower. It might look a little bit like a buttercup from where you're looking at it, but this is a Geum, and if you are looking for some country style sort of flowers for your garden, then the Geum is a really good one to have. This is obviously yellow, but I do have orange and tangerine sort of colours as well. And what I've done there is I've left the Geum in its whole size. Hopefully you can see that this piece here is spoiling the overall shape of my crescent. So just by removing that, I can pop it in lower down. That will help cover a space and bring the texture down to the bottom. But by keeping the centre bit free, I'm going to get a better emphasis on the shape. Same with this one here. If I remove this outside longer piece, I've now got a piece that's slightly curved. So that will help emphasize that outline shape again. So I'm starting, if you can, with your smaller flowers on the outside and your larger flowers towards the middle if you have an option. If not, just try and evenly space out everything you've got. As I come more away from the base of the arrangement, my flowers can become softer and daintier, and your flowers very casually disappear into the distance. I'm going to copy that on the opposite side, but what I'm trying to do is to make the design a little bit asymmetrical, so it's taller on one side and shorter on the other. And this is a massive fashion trend at the moment, these very natural arrangements, very much inspired from the 1930s and from the times where we weren't using floral foam. You get that really jaunty asymmetrical look. So hopefully you can appreciate how that's coming together. I have got one more of the Geums, and that's I'm going to use more towards the front of the arrangement because I don't have that colour and that flower towards the front. And then this little tiny bit that I've got left, I can bring towards the back because that's, again, is going to reinforce that three-dimensional effect and create depth. I think I should have a quiz one day when I ask you questions and we can see who remembers anything I've taught you. Right, now I'm going to introduce a really pretty little flower that you will all know as evening primrose. Some of us have evening primrose oil for menopause symptoms. You might be using it as a herbal remedy, but this is what it looks like when it grows in the garden. It's a lovely buttercup yellow flower, and often with garden flowers like this, you have to keep cutting them to encourage more flowers to come. So it's ideal for me when I'm encouraging more flowers to come in the garden, I can cut them and use them in tutorials to help you understand how you can use your flowers. Now I only have 3 stems of these, so the bigger one is going to come sort of towards the front, but not really central, because that's going to give it quite an artificial finish. But my final piece is going to come off to what is the shorter side of my arrangement. We've got that really country look to the arrangement. It's much more informal when you've got lots of small flowers than when you've got a big focal point to add into the middle. And I'm still going to use the greenery because it'll add a nice bit of texture and it'll help to fill in the arrangement and cover the floral foam there at the bottom. And if I just tilt it forward, then you'll see that I've got almost a flat section there in the middle where the Heuchera leaves are. And that's going to stay really flat there in the middle to exaggerate that outline shape that I'm trying to create. So we got nice and tall on one side, swinging through onto the opposite side, which is a bit smaller. And now I'm going to start introducing a flower that you might be familiar with from being on the side of the roads, quite often in the hedgerows or alongside the verges on dual carriageways and etc. But it is quite a sought after plant that will grow really nicely in the garden. It's part of the chrysanthemum family. Commonly we refer to it as the dog daisy. It's really good at lasting and it's still quite seasonal, so you'll only get it for a month or so. Lasts really well, and I think it's a fabulous flower for bringing in that country look to an arrangement. Different parts of the country and different parts of the world might have something else in the hedgerows, and I know that there are many parts of the world where you can't pick anything from the hedgerows because it's illegal, but I'm quite lucky here. Now I'm aiming to have that same pattern. I'm bringing all of the white daisy flower from one side of the arrangement to the other. At the moment I've only come halfway down, so you can see the white stops in the middle. Now I've got to try and bring that colour and texture all the way through from the outside to the opposite side. With a traditional arrangement like this, a symmetrical design, you really are looking to try and balance the colour and the flower types on one side to the other. When you're doing designs that are a little bit more contemporary or more modern in their styling, then you can group flowers and textures on opposite sides. But for traditional arrangements, just think about trying to balance the colour off on one side to the other. Now I don't think I'm going to need an awful lot more in this particular design. So as ever, I will add in an instruction guide over on Etsy should you want to know any more information about the flower types and the flower varieties. And if you want to build up a bit of a resource guide to produce future arrangements, then that's a really good way of almost starting a little mini book. You can collect them, you can print them out if you want. They're better as digital downloads that you can store on your iPad or your laptop, and you can refer back to them at any time. Now I'm going to place a few little bits of the white daisy down low. That's really going to help exaggerate the recession and make your eye travel all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to place just a few of the buds right down low as well. That helps to cover the foam and it gives that three-dimensional effect that I keep talking about over and over and over again. I'm hoping that reinforcing all this information helps you remember when you're creating designs at home. And don't forget, I haven't mentioned for a little while, I do have a Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group. It's a private Facebook group. You'll find me by searching for Sharon's Innovations Group. You have to answer a couple of questions just so that I know you're not a robot. Believe it or not, I have had a few scammers trying to join the group, which I find a bit strange. And if you are creating designs and you want to post them for other people to look at them, or you want a little bit of feedback from me, then you have the opportunity on that Facebook group. If you join, you also get discount codes towards the online courses that are running. So it's well worth participating in the group. I'm just going to add 2 or 3 of the little daisy heads here towards the back. And I think that's a really sweet, pretty little design that almost replicates what we're seeing in the side of the road and on the verges and in your gardens at this time of the year. So I hope you've enjoyed that one. As ever, it's really lovely to be able to show you all these different tutorials, and I hope you're enjoying them. Please subscribe to the channel, that helps other people find us. Hit that notification bell if you want to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. Ask as many questions as you want. Tell me where you're watching me from and what you really enjoy. Like the channel, and then hopefully more people will find us. I'm way over 8,000 subscribers, which I never thought I would do when I first started this channel. But thank you ever so much, everybody that comes back time and time and time again. And that's it. That's my garden inspired design for July. So see you soon. Bye for now.